I stared at my phone during a business lunch in downtown Seattle. My father's text read, "I disown you. Talk to my lawyer." No explanation, no warning. Just cold rejection after 3 years of quietly funding my parents' mortgage, medical bills, and lifestyle. My younger brother Tyler gets everything while I get nothing but contempt. I typed back, "Okay." Then I opened my banking app and began withdrawing every dollar of support. My hand didn't shake. I was done being invisible. My name is Francis. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 3 years, I've been the silent financial backbone of my family. Most people don't know this about me. My colleagues at the tech firm where I work as a software project manager think I live a comfortable bachelor life in my downtown apartment. They see the nice clothes, the reliable car, the occasional weekend trips. What they don't see is the $1,800 that leaves my account every month for my parents' mortgage, or the $400 for my father's diabetes medication, or the $300 for their utilities, or the random hundreds that get requested for emergencies that somehow happen every other week. It started 3 years ago when my father had a serious health scare. He'd been working as an operations manager at a manufacturing plant for 26 years when they restructured and let him go at 58. The timing couldn't have been worse. He'd just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. My mother's car had died, and they were still carrying a mortgage on the house in Tacoma with 12 years left to pay. I was doing well, really well. I'd just gotten promoted, and my salary had jumped to 6 figures. When my mother called me, crying, saying they might lose the house, I didn't hesitate. I told them I'd help. Temporarily. Just until my father found something new, or they could refinance, or whatever solution presented itself. That was 3 years ago. The temporary help became permanent. My father never found another job. He collected unemployment for a while, then just stopped looking. My mother worked part-time at a grocery store, but that barely covered groceries. So I became the solution. The ATM, the responsible son. And my younger brother Tyler, he was 28 and still finding himself. He'd bounced between jobs, never keeping one longer than 6 months. He'd tried starting a food truck business that failed. Then a pressure washing service that lasted 2 months. Then he got really into day trading for a while, which meant he sat at home staring at stock charts and losing money. My parents never criticized him. They said he was exploring his options and learning what he's passionate about. Meanwhile, every achievement I had was met with a shrug. When I got promoted to senior project manager, my father said, "That's nice," and changed the subject. When I closed a major deal that earned me a $15,000 bonus, my mother asked if I could increase my monthly contribution because property taxes were going up. My 32nd birthday came and went without a call. But Tyler's 30th birthday 2 months later got a backyard barbecue with 40 people. I noticed little things that built up over time. When I visited their house, the living room wall was covered in photos. Tyler at his high school graduation, Tyler at the beach, Tyler with his friends. There were 2 photos of me, both from childhood, tucked in a corner. My mother's Facebook was full of posts about Tyler's latest venture, always cheering him on, always proud. I got mentioned maybe twice a year. I told myself it didn't matter. I was the stable one, the successful one. I didn't need validation. But the truth was, it hurt. It hurt every single time. So when that text came through during my business lunch with a potential client, I felt something crack inside me. I was sitting at a nice restaurant on First Avenue, discussing a software integration project worth $200,000, and my phone buzzed. I glanced at it out of habit. "I disown you. Talk to my lawyer." That was it. No context. No previous argument. We hadn't even spoken in 2 weeks. I stared at those 7 words while my client talked about timeline expectations. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed calm. I excused myself, said I needed to take an important call, and walked outside. I stood on the sidewalk in the October drizzle and read the message again and again. I waited for the follow-up text. The explanation. The sorry. That wasn't meant for you. Nothing came. I called my father. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called my mother. Same thing. I typed out a long response, then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Finally, I just wrote, "Okay." I walked back inside, finished my meeting professionally, and shook hands with the client. Then I drove straight to my bank. The joint account my parents had insisted I create for emergencies held $12,000. It was supposed to be for true emergencies, but over the years, it had funded everything from a new water heater to a vacation to Reno. I transferred every dollar to my personal account. Then I logged into my main account and canceled the automatic transfers I'd set up. The mortgage payment, the utility payments, the medication auto refills I'd linked to my credit card. One by one, I dismantled 3 years of financial life support. My hands were steady. I felt a strange sense of calm, like I was watching myself from a distance. When everything was canceled, I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and just breathed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this bizarre mix of grief and liberation. I drove home, changed into comfortable clothes, and made myself dinner, pasta with marinara sauce. I ate it at my kitchen table while scrolling through 3 years of text messages from my parents. Requests for money, complaints about bills, updates about Tyler's latest idea. Very few thank yous. Almost no questions about my life. That night, I checked my email before bed, and that's when I saw it. My father had accidentally CC'd me on an email thread. The subject line was family issue. The email chain was between my father and my uncle Raymond. In it, my father was furious with Tyler. Apparently, Tyler had stolen my mother's jewelry, several pieces that had been in the family for generations, and pawned them to pay off gambling debts. My father was talking about disowning Tyler, cutting him off completely, making him face consequences. The timestamp on that email was 30 minutes before I received the text. I sat there staring at my laptop screen, feeling my entire understanding shift. The text wasn't meant for me. My father had meant to send, "I disown you. Talk to my lawyer," to Tyler. But somehow, it came to me instead. And when I responded with, "Okay," my father must have realized his mistake. But instead of apologizing, instead of calling to explain, he'd just gone silent. I could imagine what happened. My father, too proud to admit he'd messed up, probably told my mother it was fine, that I'd get over it. Or maybe he was so angry at Tyler that he didn't even notice his error right away. Either way, he'd disowned me by accident, and then doubled down by ignoring my attempts to reach him. I closed my laptop and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the entire night without waking up. The next 2 days were the quietest of my life. I went to work, attended meetings, reviewed code, approved timelines. I hit the gym after work, something I hadn't done regularly in months. I meal prepped for the week. I called my friend Jake and made plans to grab beers on Friday. I lived my normal life, except it felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying a heavy backpack for 3 years and had finally set it down. Nobody called me. Nobody texted. The silence from my family was absolute. Then, on the afternoon of the 3rd day, my phone started ringing. It was my mother. I was in the middle of a code review, so I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I ignored it. Then again, and again. By the time I got out of the meeting 20 minutes later, I had 17 missed calls from her. I sat in my office and stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to throw it in a drawer and forget about it, but I knew this moment was coming. I knew there'd be consequences to what I'd done. I just didn't expect them to take 3 days. On the 18th call, I answered. "Francis." "Oh, thank God." "Francis, where have you been?" My mother's voice was frantic, high-pitched, barely controlled. "I've been at work, Mom." "What's going on?" What's going on? What's going on? Francis, the mortgage payment bounced. The bank called me this morning and said we're late and there's a fee, and I don't understand what happened. I kept my voice level. I canceled the automatic payment. Silence. Then, you what? I canceled it. I also canceled the utility payments and the medication auto refills. Everything. Why would you do that? Francis, are you insane? Do you know what this means? The electric company sent us a disconnect notice. Your father's pharmacy called and said his prescriptions are past due. We have $18 in our checking account. I'm sorry to hear that. You're sorry? You're sorry? Her voice climbed into a near shriek. Francis, what is wrong with you? Why would you do this to us? Dad disowned me. I'm respecting his wishes. Another silence. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Less panic, more anger. That was a misunderstanding. Your father's phone glitched. He didn't mean to send that to you. A glitch. Yes, he was upset about something else, and the message went to the wrong person. You know how technology is. He's not good with phones, so it wasn't meant for me. No, of course not. Who was it meant for? She hesitated. That's not important. What's important is fixing this. Francis, we need that money. The mortgage is due. We can't afford to have the power shut off. Your father needs his medication. Then Dad should probably apologize. Apologize? Francis, you're being a child about this. So what if he sent a text by mistake? Are you really going to let your own parents suffer over your pride? The word pride hit me like a slap. I'd spent 3 years funding their lives. 3 years getting ignored, disrespected, and taken for granted. And now I was prideful for wanting an apology after being accidentally disowned? I learned that from Dad. I said quietly, What? The pride. I learned it from watching him. He made a mistake, and instead of owning it, he's pretending it didn't happen. So yes, Mom, I guess I am being prideful. I'm done being the family ATM. If you need money, ask Tyler. Tyler doesn't have money. You know that. Then maybe Tyler should get a job. He's trying. He's working on something new, and it's going to be big, and you're just jealous, because I hung up. My hands were shaking now. Not from fear or sadness, but from anger. 3 years. $72,000 if I did the math right. And the moment I stopped, I was the bad guy. My phone rang again immediately. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. She called 6 more times before finally stopping. Then Tyler called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up. What the hell is your problem? Tyler's voice was pure rage. No greeting. No pretense. Hello to you too, Tyler. Don't give me that. Mom just called me crying. Do you have any idea what you're doing to them? I have a pretty good idea. Yeah, you're destroying this family over a stupid text message. Dad made a mistake, and you're acting like a selfish bastard. Interesting choice of words coming from someone who stole Mom's jewelry to pay gambling debts. Silence. Yeah, I continued. I know about that. I know the text was meant for you. I know you've been stealing from them. I know everything, Tyler. That's none of your business. You're right. It's not. Just like their bills aren't my business anymore. So here's an idea. Why don't you step up? Sell your gaming computer. Sell your truck. Get a real job. And help them out for once. You don't understand what I'm dealing with. You're right. I don't. Because unlike you, when I was dealing with problems, I handled them instead of stealing from my parents. Go to hell, Francis. He hung up. I set my phone on my desk and put my head in my hands. My office door was closed, but I could hear the normal sounds of the workplace outside. Keyboards clicking, people laughing, the coffee machine gurgling. Everything was normal out there. In here, my family was falling apart. Or maybe, I thought, it had been falling apart for years. I'd just been too busy propping it up to notice. That evening, I went home and tried to relax. I made dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed early. But sleep didn't come as easily this time. I kept replaying the conversations. My mother's panic. Tyler's rage. My father's continued silence. At 11:30, I heard my phone buzz on my nightstand. I considered ignoring it but reached over and checked. It was an email notification. From a law office. I sat up and opened it. The email was from Patterson and Lee, attorneys at law. It was addressed to me, formal and cold. The subject line read, "Legal notice regarding financial obligations." I read it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. My father's lawyer was threatening to sue me for ceasing financial support. The letter claimed that I had made a verbal commitment to assist my parents until their retirement, and that my sudden withdrawal of funds constituted a breach of an oral contract. They were also threatening to pursue charges of financial elder abuse for leaving my parents in a state of financial distress. The letter demanded that I immediately resume all payments and provide 6 months of back payment for emotional distress, or they would file suit in King County Court. I read the letter a 4th time, then a 5th. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd that laughter was the only response that made sense. My father would rather sue me than apologize. He'd rather drag his own son to court than admit he made a mistake. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then shut off my phone. I didn't sleep well, but I did sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I took a personal day from work and called a family law attorney named Carolyn Hughes. She'd been recommended to me by a colleague who'd gone through a messy divorce. Carolyn had a reputation for being sharp, thorough, and unafraid of complicated family situations. Her office was in Bellevue, in a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. Carolyn herself was in her late 40s, with short gray hair and the kind of direct eye contact that made you feel like she could read your entire life story in 30 seconds. I showed her everything. The threatening email from my father's lawyer, 3 years of bank statements showing every transfer I'd made to my parents, text messages where they demanded money, emails where they asked for help with bills, screenshots of my mother's Facebook posts, praising Tyler while barely acknowledging me. The accidental email thread that proved the disownment text was meant for Tyler, not me. Carolyn read through everything methodically, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and looked at me. "Okay," she said. "First, the good news. This threat from your father's attorney is completely baseless. There is no such thing as an enforceable oral contract for family financial support in Washington state. Adult children have no legal obligation to support their parents unless they've signed specific legal documents agreeing to do so, which you haven't. The financial elder abuse angle is laughable. That statute is designed to protect elderly people from caretakers who steal from them or withhold necessary care. You're not their caretaker. You're their son who was voluntarily helping. You have every right to stop." Relief washed over me. "So they can't sue me?" "Oh, they can sue you. Anyone can sue anyone, but they won't win. In fact, if they do file, we can probably get it dismissed pretty quickly and potentially countersue for frivolous litigation." She paused. "But here's the thing, Francis. Family lawsuits get ugly, really ugly. Even if you win, you lose. Relationships get destroyed. Things get said that can never be taken back. Is that something you're prepared for?" I thought about it. I don't know. Part of me thinks the relationship is already destroyed. Maybe. But you should be sure before we go down that road. She tapped her pen on the legal pad. "Here's what I recommend. We document everything, and I mean everything. Every transfer you made, every text, every phone call. We create a timeline. Then we send a formal letter to your father's attorney, outlining the situation and making a settlement offer." Settlement? Why would I settle? I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't. But sometimes it's worth it to end things cleanly. We offer to pay one final month of their expenses in exchange for them dropping all legal threats and signing a document acknowledging that you have no further obligation. It's not about right or wrong. It's about ending this as painlessly as possible. I considered it. What if they refuse? Then we prepare for court. But my guess is that once they see how weak their case is, they'll back down. Especially when they realize you have documentation of everything. We spent the next 2 hours going through my records. Carolyn had me create a spreadsheet listing every payment I'd made to my parents over 3 years. When we finished, the total came to $72,418. I stared at that number on my laptop screen. $72,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was a new car. That was 2 years of maxed out retirement contributions. And I'd given it all to people who couldn't even remember my birthday. Carolyn printed out the documentation and organized it into a binder. Take this home. Look it over. Think about what you want to do. I'll draft the letter, but I won't send it until you give me the go-ahead. I thanked her and left. On the drive home, I felt simultaneously empowered and exhausted. Empowered because I finally had proof that I wasn't crazy, that I'd done nothing wrong. Exhausted because I was having to fight this battle at all. That evening, my friend Jake came over with pizza and beer. We sat on my balcony overlooking the Seattle skyline, and I told him everything. Jake listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I'd always appreciated about him. When I finished, he took a long drink of his beer and shook his head. Man, that's heavy. You know what this reminds me of? What? My older sister, Emily. She went through something similar with our parents. Not exactly the same, but close. She was the responsible one, always helping out, always there when they needed her. And my younger brother, Marcus, was the screw-up. Got into drugs, wrecked his car 3 times, couldn't hold a job. But my parents babied him, made excuses for him. Emily got tired of it and moved across the country. My parents didn't talk to her for 2 years. What happened? Eventually, Marcus hit rock bottom and went to rehab. My parents finally saw him clearly. They reached out to Emily and apologized. It took time, but they rebuilt things. It's not perfect, but it's better. He looked at me. The point is, don't cave on this, Francis. If you give in now, they'll never respect you. They'll just see you as the ATM again. You're doing the right thing. His words meant more than I expected. I'd been second-guessing myself constantly, wondering if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. But Jake was right. This wasn't about punishment. It was about finally setting boundaries. The next morning, I emailed Carolyn and told her to send the letter. She drafted something professional and unemotional, laying out the facts and offering the settlement. The letter went out via certified mail so we'd have proof they received it. Then I waited. 3 days later, I got a Facebook friend request from my cousin Ashley. I hadn't talked to Ashley in probably 8 years. We'd been close as kids, but life had pulled us in different directions. She lived in Spokane now, working as a teacher. I accepted the request, and immediately she sent me a message. Hey, Francis. I wanted to reach out because your mom has been calling everyone in the family. She's telling people that you abandoned them and stole money from their account. She's playing the victim really hard. Aunts and uncles are talking about taking sides. I know there's probably more to the story, and I wanted you to know what's happening before the big Sunday gathering at Uncle Raymond's. Just thought you should have a heads up. I read the message 3 times. My mother was waging a reputation war. She was turning the family against me before I even had a chance to explain. I thought about ignoring it, about just not going to the gathering. But then I realized that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted me to disappear quietly, so they could control the narrative. I messaged Ashley back. Thanks for the heads up. I'll be there Sunday, and I'll bring receipts. Sunday arrived gray and drizzly, typical Seattle November weather. Uncle Raymond's house was in Renton, A split level from the 70s with a big backyard and a basement that always smelled like mothballs. Family gatherings happened there 3 or 4 times a year, holidays and random occasions when Raymond felt like playing host. I dressed carefully. Not too casual, not too formal. I wanted to look put together, like someone who had his life in order. I loaded my tablet with all the documentation Carolyn had helped me organize. Then I drove south on I-5, my stomach tight with anxiety. Cars already lined the street when I arrived. I recognized my parents' sedan, Tyler's truck, and various vehicles belonging to aunts and uncles. I sat in my car for a minute, gathering courage. Then I grabbed my tablet and walked to the front door. Uncle Raymond opened it. He was my father's older brother, 63, with a gray beard and a perpetually skeptical expression. "Francis, wasn't sure you'd show." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, keeping my voice light. I walked into the living room, and the conversation died. There were about 15 people there. My parents sat on the couch. My mother's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. My father sat with his arms crossed, staring at the wall. Tyler stood near the kitchen, looking anywhere but at me. Various aunts and uncles filled the other chairs. "Francis." My mother stood up and rushed over to me with theatrical tears. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you came. I've been so worried." She tried to hug me, but it was performative, for the audience. I gently stepped back. "Hi, Mom." Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, stood up from her chair. She was a large woman with dyed blonde hair and a tendency to insert herself into everyone's business. "Francis, we need to talk about what you've been doing to your parents. This is unacceptable." "I'd be happy to talk about it," I said calmly. "Can I sit down first?" Uncle Raymond gestured to an empty chair. "Everyone sit. Let's hear both sides before we start pointing fingers." People settled into seats. The room felt like a courtroom. My mother kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My father still wouldn't look at me. "Francis," Uncle Raymond said, "your mother called me in tears 3 days ago. She said you've abandoned them financially and that they're facing foreclosure and can't afford your father's medication. That true?" "I did stop sending them money." "Yes." Aunt Linda jumped in. "How could you do that? They're your parents. You have a responsibility to honor them, to take care of them." "I did take care of them. For 3 years. 3 years isn't enough. You don't just abandon family." I took a breath. "Can I explain what happened? The whole story?" Uncle Raymond nodded. "That's why we're here." I opened my tablet and pulled up the timeline Carolyn and I had created. 3 years ago, Dad lost his job and had health problems. I offered to help temporarily. That help became permanent. Over the past 3 years, I've sent my parents $72,418. Someone gasped. I couldn't tell who. I continued. I paid $1,800 a month for their mortgage, $400 for Dad's medications, $300 for utilities, and hundreds more for random emergencies. I have bank statements documenting every transfer. I turned the tablet around so people could see the spreadsheet. This is all of it. Uncle Raymond leaned forward to look. His eyebrows went up. My mother spoke up, her voice shaking. "We were grateful, Francis. But you make good money. You could afford it. We didn't think you'd mind." I didn't mind helping. What I minded was being treated like an ATM instead of a son. What I minded was being ignored and disrespected, while Tyler got praised for doing nothing. Tyler finally spoke. "That's not fair." I turned to him. "Isn't it? Tell everyone here what you've been doing for the past 3 years while I've been funding Mom and Dad's life." He went quiet. I looked back at the room. Tyler has been bouncing between failed business ideas, day trading, and not working. He lives at home rent-free. And meanwhile, Dad forgot my 32nd birthday but threw Tyler a huge party for his 30th. My mother tried to interrupt. "Francis, you're exaggerating." "Am I?" I pulled up another document on my tablet. Here are screenshots from your Facebook, Mom. In 3 years, you posted about Tyler 93 times. You posted about me 4 times. All 4 were requests for money disguised as updates. The room went very quiet. Aunt Linda looked uncomfortable now. Well, maybe they didn't express appreciation the right way, but that doesn't mean you should abandon them in their time of need. I agree. Which is why I kept helping even when they didn't say thank you. What made me stop was this. I pulled up the text message. 10 days ago, Dad sent me this text. I disown you. Talk to my lawyer. No explanation, no warning. Just that. I held up the tablet so everyone could see it. My father shifted in his seat but said nothing. I called him. He didn't answer. I called Mom. She didn't answer, so I responded, okay. And then I stopped sending money. That seemed like the appropriate response to being disowned. Uncle Raymond looked at my father. Is that true? You disowned him? My father's jaw tightened. It was a mistake. A mistake, I repeated. And when you realized your mistake, you could have called me, apologized, explained. But instead, you sent your lawyer after me with threats of suing me for financial elder abuse. More gasps around the room. Aunt Linda looked shocked. You did what? I showed them the email from Patterson and Lee. Dad's lawyer threatened to sue me unless I immediately resumed payments and provided 6 months of back payment for emotional distress. Uncle Raymond's face darkened. He looked at my father. What the hell were you thinking? My father finally spoke, his voice low and defensive. He cut us off with no warning. We have bills. The mortgage is due. I panicked. So you threatened your own son with a lawsuit? I was protecting my family. I am your family. The words burst out of me louder than I intended. The room went silent. I'm your son, Dad. I spent 3 years protecting you, keeping your house afloat, making sure you had medication. And the moment you accidentally disowned me, instead of apologizing, you doubled down and threatened to sue me. My father's face reddened. Accidentally? I pulled up the final piece of evidence. You CC'd me on an email by mistake. I saw the whole thread. The text was meant for Tyler, not me. Every head in the room swiveled to Tyler. My mother's face went pale. Francis, don't. But I was done protecting Tyler. Tyler stole Mom's jewelry and pawned it to pay gambling debts. That's what the text was about. Dad was going to disown Tyler, but the message came to me instead. The room exploded. Multiple people started talking at once. Uncle Raymond demanded answers. Aunt Linda looked horrified. Other relatives started questioning Tyler, who stood there looking like he wanted to disappear. Is that true? Uncle Raymond's voice cut through the noise. He was looking directly at Tyler. Tyler's face was red. I was going to pay them back. I just needed. Did you steal from your mother? Uncle Raymond's voice was steel. Tyler couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Yes. My father stood up suddenly. That's enough. This is family business, and we don't need to air it out like this. Too late, I said quietly. You already aired it out when you sent your lawyer after me. Uncle Raymond stood too. Sit down, both of you. He looked around the room. Okay, here's what I'm seeing. Francis helped his parents for 3 years. Got no appreciation. Got disowned by mistake. Got threatened with a lawsuit. And now he's being made to feel like the bad guy for finally drawing a line. Is that about right? Several people nodded. Uncle Raymond looked at my parents. You two owe Francis an apology. A big one. And you owe him $72,000 if we're being honest, but I doubt that's happening. My mother started crying for real now, not the performative tears from earlier. My father just looked defeated. I stood up. I'm not here for an apology. I'm here because I wanted everyone to know the truth. Mom's been calling people and saying I stole from them and abandoned them. I wanted you all to see the receipts before you chose sides. I looked directly at my parents. I don't owe you anything. Not anymore. I turned to leave. Francis. Wait. It was a soft voice from behind me. I turned. My grandmother was standing by the hallway. She was my father's mother, 91 years old, sharp as ever despite her age. She'd been so quiet I hadn't even noticed her there. She walked over to me slowly, her cane tapping on the hardwood floor. "Walk me outside, honey." I took her arm gently and led her out the front door. We stood on Uncle Raymond's porch in the drizzle. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "Your grandfather would be proud of you," she said. "Grandma, hush, let me talk." She pressed the envelope into my hand. "Your grandfather did the same thing to your father that your father did to you. Made him feel worthless. Praised his younger brother. Your dad never healed from it. And now he's doing it to you because hurt people hurt people." She patted my hand. "I'm proud of you for walking away. That takes courage." I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $10,000. "Grandma, I can't." "Yes, you can. This is from your grandfather's life insurance. Your father doesn't know I kept it separate. He thinks it all got spent years ago. Use it for something that makes you happy. You earned it." I felt tears burning in my eyes. In 3 years, no one in my family had said they were proud of me. And here was my 91-year-old grandmother, standing in the rain, telling me I'd done the right thing. I hugged her carefully, mindful of her frailty. She hugged me back surprisingly tight. "Don't come back until they apologize for real," she whispered. "And don't you dare give them any more money." "I won't," I promised. She patted my cheek and went back inside. I stood there for a minute, holding the check, letting the rain mix with my tears. Then I got in my car and drove home. For the first time in years, I cried. Really cried. Not from sadness exactly, but from release. From finally being seen. From finally being enough. The next 2 weeks were strange. I went to work, lived my life, and watched from a distance as my family's situation unraveled. I didn't engage directly, but information filtered back to me through Ashley and occasionally through my grandmother, who called me twice just to check in. My parents tried to refinance their house but discovered their credit was worse than they thought. Years of late payments and maxed-out credit cards had tanked their score. The banks wouldn't touch them. They looked into a reverse mortgage but didn't qualify for enough to make a difference. Tyler moved back home temporarily after getting evicted from the apartment he'd been renting. He contributed nothing. No rent, no groceries, no help with bills. He just existed there, playing video games and avoiding responsibility. Then things got weirder. Ashley sent me a screenshot on a Wednesday afternoon. My mother had created a GoFundMe page. The title was, "Facing Foreclosure After Unforeseen Hardship." The description painted a picture of elderly parents struggling after a job loss, medical bills piling up, and the bank threatening to take their home. It mentioned that they'd always been proud and independent, but needed help during this difficult time. It didn't mention me. It didn't mention Tyler. It definitely didn't mention $72,000 of support or stolen jewelry or gambling debts. The goal was $15,000. "This is going around the family Facebook groups," Ashley wrote. "Thought you should see it." I stared at the page. Part of me was angry. Part of me was just sad. They were so desperate that they'd turned to internet strangers for money. I didn't respond publicly, but I did send a private message to the relatives I trusted, including Ashley, Uncle Raymond, and a few cousins who'd reached out after the gathering. I sent them the full documentation Carolyn had prepared. The bank statements, the timeline, the text messages, everything. I wrote, "I'm not trying to turn anyone against my parents. I'm just making sure people have the facts before they donate." The response was immediate. Uncle Raymond called me that night. "Francis, I shared your documentation with a few people. Your Aunt Barbara was about to donate $500. She withdrew it after seeing the truth. Linda is furious with your mother for lying. This GoFundMe isn't going to work." He was right. By the end of the week, the page had raised $280, mostly from distant acquaintances who didn't know the full story. My mother quietly deleted it 3 days later. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I used my grandmother's $10,000 to book a long weekend trip to Vancouver Island in British Columbia. I'd always wanted to explore Victoria and the coastal areas, but had never felt like I could afford it. Now I could. I stayed in a nice bed and breakfast, hiked through old-growth forests, and ate fresh seafood by the harbor. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in years. At work, I got promoted to senior project manager. My boss called me into her office and told me I'd been performing exceptionally, and the company wanted to recognize it with a raise and expanded responsibilities. The raise was $18,000 a year. I calculated that amount in my head. It was exactly what I'd been sending my parents annually. My life was measurably, tangibly better, without the constant financial drain. But the family situation kept evolving. 3 weeks after the gathering at Uncle Raymond's house, Tyler got arrested for DUI. He'd been drinking at a bar and tried to drive home. He ran a red light and got pulled over. His blood alcohol level was 0.14, well over the legal limit. He called my father from the jail. My father called me at 10:30 at night. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious. "Francis." His voice sounded exhausted. "Tyler's in jail. He needs bail. It's $1,500. "Okay. Can you help?" "No." "Francis, please. He's your brother. He's an adult who made a bad choice. That's not my problem. We don't have $1,500. If he stays in there overnight, he'll lose his job." "What job?" "Tyler doesn't have a job." My father went quiet. Then, he started working at a warehouse last week. Part-time. It's not much, but it's something. If he doesn't show up tomorrow, they'll fire him. I felt a tiny flicker of something, maybe respect that Tyler had actually gotten a job, but not enough to cave. "I'm sorry, Dad. I can't help." "You mean you won't?" "Same thing." He hung up. Later I learned from Ashley that my father had to sell his boat to cover Tyler's bail and lawyer fees. I didn't even know he had a boat. Apparently, he'd bought it 2 years ago, right around the time I started sending them money, priorities. My mother sent occasional texts during this period, sometimes angry, "I can't believe you're doing this to us." Sometimes pleading, "Please, Francis, we need you." Sometimes guilt-tripping, "When we're gone, you'll regret this." I didn't block her, but I didn't respond either. I just let the messages sit there, unread notifications that eventually piled up. I went to therapy. I'd been resistant to it for years, thinking I could handle everything on my own. But after the confrontation at Uncle Raymond's house, I realized I had a lot to process. My therapist, Dr. Karen Winters, helped me understand the dynamics of family scapegoating and how children of narcissistic parents often become either the golden child or the invisible child. I was the latter. Tyler was the former. Understanding that didn't fix anything, but it helped me stop blaming myself. One evening in early December, I was cooking dinner in my apartment when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Francis?" It was my father's voice, but different, smaller, uncertain. "Yeah, it's Dad." "I know." Silence for a moment. Then, "Your mother wants to know if you'd come to dinner. Sunday. Just the 4 of us. She's making pot roast." Pot roast was my favorite meal growing up. My mother knew that. This was an olive branch. Or maybe bait. I wasn't sure which. "Why?" "She misses you." "We both do." The words sounded hollow. I waited for more. "And maybe you could spot us $500 for the electric bill. Just this once. We'll pay you back." There it was. The real reason for the call. Not reconciliation, not apology. Just another request for money dressed up as family time. Something inside me hardened. "No, Dad. I won't be coming to dinner, and I won't be sending money." "Francis, come on. Don't be like this." "Be like what?" "Independent? Self-respecting? Stubborn?" You're being stubborn. I wonder where I learned that. His voice changed, getting harder. Then you're making a big mistake. Don't come crying to us when you need something. I won't, I said. I hope you figure things out, Dad. I really do. But I can't be part of it anymore. You'll regret this. Maybe. But it's my choice to make. I hung up. My hand was shaking, but not from fear or doubt. From finality. That conversation felt like a door closing. Maybe not forever, but for now. I finished cooking dinner, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. The December air was cold, but I didn't mind. I felt clear, certain. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. A month passed. Christmas came and went. I spent it with Jake and his family, which felt more comfortable than any holiday with my own relatives had felt in years. I sent my grandmother a card and a fruit basket. She called to thank me and told me my parents had a quiet Christmas, just the three of them. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. Then, on a Tuesday evening in January, my building's doorman called up to my apartment. "Mr. Francis, there's a Tyler here to see you. Says he's your brother." I froze. Tyler had never come to my apartment. We'd barely spoken since the gathering at Uncle Raymond's house. "Did he say what he wants?" "No, sir. Just that he needs to talk to you." I considered turning him away, but curiosity won. "Send him up." I opened my door and waited. The elevator dinged, and Tyler stepped out. He looked terrible. His hair was unwashed and too long. He'd lost weight, maybe 15 pounds, and his face was gaunt. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He wore an old sweatshirt and jeans that hung loose on him. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey." We stood there awkwardly. Finally, I stepped back. "Come in." He walked into my apartment slowly, looking around like he was seeing it for the first time. He probably was. He'd never visited before. He sat on my couch without being invited, then put his head in his hands. "You want water or something?" I asked. "No. I just need to talk." I sat in the chair across from him and waited. Tyler took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "Everything. Stealing Mom's jewelry, letting you take the blame for stuff. Being a useless piece of garbage for the past 5 years." He looked up at me, and his eyes were wet. "I've been going to Gamblers Anonymous. 3 weeks now, and part of the program is making amends, admitting what you did. So I'm here to tell you the truth about everything." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "I started gambling 4 years ago. Online poker at first, then sports betting. Then I got into fantasy sports and daily betting apps. I told myself I was good at it, that I could make money. But I was just losing. Thousands of dollars. I maxed out credit cards, took out payday loans, and when those ran out, I started stealing from Mom and Dad." He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "The jewelry was just the last thing. Before that, I took cash from Dad's wallet. I used Mom's credit card to pay off some debts and told her it must have been fraud. I even stole checks from their checkbook and forged signatures. I was desperate. Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because everyone thought I was the golden child, the creative one, the one with potential. How could I admit I was a total failure?" He laughed bitterly. "Meanwhile, you were actually successful, actually responsible, and I hated you for it. So I undermined you. I'd tell Mom and Dad things to make you look bad. Like when you couldn't come to Thanksgiving one year because you had work. I told them you were probably with a girlfriend and didn't want to introduce her to the family. Stupid stuff like that. I wanted them to love me more than you." I felt anger rising in my chest, but also something else. Pity. "When you stopped sending money," Tyler continued, "everything fell apart. Dad's lawyer told him the lawsuit was stupid and refused to file it. Mom's GoFundMe failed. I got arrested. And Mom and Dad finally started seeing me clearly. They realized I've been the problem all along, but it's too late now. The house is going into foreclosure. Dad's health is getting worse from the stress. Mom's working full-time at the grocery store, and her feet hurt so bad she can barely walk by the end of her shift. And it's all my fault. He was fully crying now, shoulders shaking. But they still won't admit it. They still won't tell me I screwed up. They just keep pretending everything's fine while their lives fall apart. And I don't know what to do. I sat there processing everything. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. This was confirmation of everything I'd suspected, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad for Tyler. Sad for my parents. Sad for the whole broken situation. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you deserve to know. And because I need help. And I don't know where else to turn. I'm not giving you money. I don't want money." He looked at me directly for the first time. "I need information. I need to know how to fix this. You're good at this stuff. You're responsible. You have your life together. How do I even start?" I thought about it for a long time. I could turn him away, tell him to figure it out himself. But looking at him, broken and honest in a way I'd never seen before, I realized that's not who I wanted to be. "I know a counselor who specializes in addiction," I said finally. "Her name is Dr. Patricia Ramos. She helped a coworker of mine with alcoholism. And I know a bankruptcy attorney named David Chen, who's really good at helping people get their finances under control. I'll give you their contact information. What you do with it is up to you." Tyler looked at me with something like, "Hope. You'd do that? After everything I did? I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. But Tyler, you have to actually follow through. You have to do the work. I can point you toward help, but I can't save you. Nobody can save you but yourself." He nodded, wiping his eyes. "I know." I wrote down the names and numbers on a piece of paper. Tyler took it like it was made of gold. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me if you're still sober in a year." He stood up to leave. At the door, he turned back. "For what it's worth, Francis, you're a better man than me. You always were. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." After he left, I sat in my quiet apartment for a long time. The conversation had drained me emotionally. But there was also a strange sense of peace. I'd done what I could. The rest was up to Tyler. 3 days later, I got a phone call. It was my mother. But her voice was completely different from any conversation we'd had in months. No panic, no demands, no manipulation. Just quiet honesty. "Francis? It's Mom. Hi. I'm calling to tell you that Tyler checked himself into a rehab program today. The one recommended by that counselor you sent him to. He's going to be there for 30 days. "That's good. David Chen, the bankruptcy attorney, met with us yesterday. Your father and me. He laid out a plan. We're filing Chapter 13. We'll lose the house, but we can get into something smaller that we can actually afford. It's going to be hard, but it's manageable. I'm glad you have a plan." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Your father broke down last night. Really broke down. He cried for 2 hours. He said he's been a terrible father to you, that he treated you like an ATM instead of a son, that he was so wrapped up in his own failures that he took it out on you. He's ashamed, Francis. We both are." I didn't know what to say. "I'm not calling to ask for money," she continued. "I'm calling to say I'm sorry. We failed you. We took advantage of your kindness, and we mocked you for caring. You deserved better. You deserved parents who celebrated you instead of resenting you. And I don't know if we can ever make it right, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see what we did." My throat tightened. These were the words I'd needed to hear for 3 years. But now that I was hearing them, I didn't know how to respond. "Thank you for saying that," I managed. "You don't have to forgive us. You don't have to have a relationship with us. I just wanted you to know the truth. We're sorry. And we're proud of you." We should have been saying that all along. Tears were running down my face now. I need time, Mom. I know. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. If you're ever ready. Okay. I love you, Francis. I love you too. We hung up. I sat on my couch and cried. Really cried for the second time in months. But this time it wasn't from pain or release. It was from hope. Tentative, fragile hope that maybe things could be different. 6 months passed. Tyler had been sober for 5 months. He completed his 30-day rehab program, then transitioned into outpatient therapy and continued attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times a week. He got a job at a warehouse, nothing glamorous but steady. He was paying down his debts slowly, $50 at a time. He'd moved into a small studio apartment instead of staying with our parents. He posted on Facebook occasionally, and the posts were different. Humbler, more honest. My parents downsized. They sold the house in Tacoma at a loss and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Federal Way. It was smaller, older, but manageable on my mother's income and my father's part-time consulting work. He'd found work with a manufacturing firm that needed someone with his operations experience, just 20 hours a week, but it gave him purpose and a paycheck. The bankruptcy process was difficult but clarifying. They'd carried so much debt for so long that having it reorganized and manageable was almost liberating. My mother told me on the phone one day that for the first time in 10 years, they could actually see a path forward. I'd been in therapy consistently, working through the layers of childhood wounds and family dynamics. Dr. Winters helped me understand that my parents' behavior wasn't about me. It was about their own pain, their own failures, their own inability to cope with life not turning out how they'd planned. That understanding didn't erase the hurt, but it made it more bearable. I'd also started dating someone. Her name was Sarah, and she was a project coordinator at a different tech company. We'd met at a networking event, and what started as a professional connection became something more. She was kind, funny, and most importantly, she had healthy boundaries with her own family. Dating her showed me what normal looked like. I'd taken 2 more trips, one to Olympic National Park and another to the Oregon coast. I'd maxed out my retirement contributions. I'd bought a new couch and a really good mattress. Small things that felt significant because I was finally investing in my own life. My grandmother called me every other week just to chat. Those conversations meant more to me than I could express. She told me stories about my grandfather, about her own struggles raising kids, about regrets and lessons learned. She never once asked me to reconcile with my parents. She just supported whatever decision I made. In late June, she invited me to Thanksgiving dinner at her place. It was 7 months after our last big family gathering. "Your parents will be there," she said, "and Tyler, and some others. I want the family together, but you don't have to come if you're not ready." I thought about it for a week. Then I called my mother. "Grandma invited me to Thanksgiving," I said. "I know. Are you coming? I'm thinking about it. But I need to know something first. Has anything actually changed? Or is this just going to be pretending everything's fine?" She was quiet for a moment. "Things have changed. Your father and I are in counseling. We're working on ourselves. We're trying to understand why we did what we did. It's not perfect, Francis. We're not perfect. But we're trying." "Okay. I'll come." Thanksgiving arrived cold and clear. I drove to my grandmother's house in Olympia, my stomach tight with nerves. Cars filled the driveway. I recognized my parents' smaller sedan, Tyler's old truck, Uncle Raymond's SUV. I walked in, carrying a pie I'd bought from a bakery. My grandmother hugged me at the door. "Proud of you for being here," she whispered. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing. About 20 people were scattered through the living room and kitchen. Conversation buzzed normally. When I walked in, it didn't stop this time. A few people waved. Uncle Raymond came over and shook my hand. "Good to see you, Francis." "You too." My mother was in the kitchen with Aunt Linda and a few others. She saw me and smiled, tentative and genuine. "Hi, honey." "Hi, Mom." We hugged briefly. It wasn't emotional or dramatic, just a normal hug. Progress. Tyler was in the living room, talking to a cousin. He'd gained back the weight he'd lost, and looked healthier. When he saw me, he came over. Hey yourself. How's it going? Good. 5 months, 2 weeks. Still going to meetings, still working. It's boring, but boring is good. Boring is very good. He smiled a real smile. Thanks again, for the referrals. Changed my life. You changed your life. I just gave you phone numbers. After dinner, when people were having pie and coffee, my father pulled me aside. We walked out onto my grandmother's back porch. The November air was cold, and you could see your breath. My father looked older. His hair was grayer. He'd lost weight too, but there was something different in his eyes. Less hardness, less defense. He held out a small wooden box. This is for you. I opened it. Inside was a pocket watch, gold and worn, with intricate engraving on the case. This was your grandfather's, my father said. His voice shook slightly. It's supposed to go to the oldest son. I never gave it to you because I was jealous of you. Jealous? You were everything I wanted to be. Successful, confident, strong. You had your life together, while mine was falling apart. And instead of being proud of you, I tore you down. I made you feel small because I felt small. He looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Francis. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know if I'd forgive me, but I want you to have this. You earned it. You've been the man I should have been. I held the watch, feeling the weight of it. 3 generations. My grandfather, my father, me. Complicated legacies passed down through time. I'm not going to lie and say everything's fine between us, I said carefully. But I appreciate this, and I appreciate you saying what you said. He nodded. That's more than I deserve. We stood there in silence for a minute. Then we went back inside. We didn't hug. We didn't have some big emotional moment. But we shook hands, and that felt honest. At the end of the evening, as people were leaving, my mother walked me to my car. The driveway was lit by porch lights, and you could see stars in the clear sky. Thank you for coming, she said. Thanks for inviting me. I don't know what happens next. If we can rebuild things. If you'll ever trust us again. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you, Francis. I'm proud of the man you are. I should have been saying that for years. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. She hugged me, and this time I hugged back properly. When we pulled apart, she was crying a little but smiling too. I drove home through the dark highways, my grandfather's watch sitting on the passenger seat. I thought about everything that had happened. The disownment text, the confrontation, the months of silence, the slow, painful rebuilding. I realized something as I drove. I'd spent 3 years trying to earn my parents' love through money, trying to prove my worth through sacrifice. And it had only made me invisible. Walking away hadn't been cruelty. It had been the kindest thing I could do, for them and for myself, because it forced everyone to face reality. It forced consequences. It forced growth. My father's inability to apologize had taught me the critical importance of accountability. My mother's manipulation had taught me the necessity of boundaries. Tyler's addiction had taught me the difference between helping and enabling. And my own pain had taught me that sometimes the people who love you most can hurt you worst, not because they're evil, but because they're broken. When I got home, I placed my grandfather's watch on my dresser next to a photo of my grandmother and me from Thanksgiving. I looked at it for a long time. I didn't know if my relationship with my parents would ever be fully healed. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But I knew I'd never again sacrifice my dignity for someone else's comfort. I knew I'd never again set myself on fire to keep others warm. I knew I'd never again let someone treat me like I didn't matter. The text that was supposed to destroy me had freed me instead. And that freedom, hard-won and costly as it was, had been worth every difficult moment. I thought about something Dr. Winters had told me in therapy. You can't control how others treat you, but you can always control how you respond. And sometimes, the most loving response is to walk away and let people face the consequences of their choices. She was right. As I got ready for bed that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've done the right thing, even when it was the hardest thing. I replied okay to a text that was meant to destroy me. Instead, it freed me. And sometimes, freedom is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set a boundary with family that felt impossible? Have you ever walked away from people you loved because staying was destroying you? How did you find the courage to choose yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your own path. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put yourself first. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach people who need them most. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you remember that you deserve to be valued, respected, and loved, not used. Take care of yourselves, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, okay, and walk away.